Hi, this is Sinead and welcome back to my channel. And today we are continuing our reading along of the Disabled Tyrant's Beloved Pet Fish. We're on volume 2. This is the second reading along for volume 2. And yeah, I'm excited to be back. Originally the plan was to be able to do 3 hours today. Was my back and my throat handles it, and hopefully we'll be able to get to that 3 hour mark, but at the bare minimum we are doing 2. And yeah, we're just kind of gonna play that part of it by ear. I'm not 100% sure. I hope the audio is okay. I was struggling a little bit with it. I'm not sure why the mic is suddenly giving me issues this year. We'll see. It's not that old of a mic, so I don't think it should be giving me issues, but anyway. There was something else I wanted to mention. If you're new here, hi, I'm Janae, and I drink tea as we go along just to help me keep sane. We take a 10-minute break on the hour, and if we are going to do 3 hours, we're definitely going to be taking 2 10-minute breaks each round about the hour. So we'll see. Hi. Oh, and one last thing. I'm not sure if anyone here would be interested in it, but I am considering potentially for Justice in the Dark, aka the live action adaptation of Mildew by Priest, is coming back onto the air. I believe it's on the 7th of March that it starts again, and then new episodes will be coming from the 3rd of April. That's what I've been hearing in any case. So I am considering doing a rewatch for the first 8 episodes over on Twitch. I'm not sure yet if there's anyone who would be interested in something like that. I am also just gonna leave my original reactions up at some point. Like, they're up, you can find them on YouTube, but I'll link them in a post at some point closer to the time, because I'm very excited to have a Chinese BL back in action, even if it censored. And that one was so well done. So I just quickly wanted to just throw that consideration that I have out there. And yeah, I think we can more or less get started. I feel like I've spoken enough. Okay. So we were hi. Sorry. I'll be like, yay, hi. Okay, sorry, we were somewhere on page 46, I believe. Let me quickly check here. Okay, yes, we were at Mutian Ming, suddenly desperate to get in the good graces of the Emperor via fish, as we all do. What were we talking about? The TGCF short. Oh, I've heard there's something there. I haven't actually checked. I probably should. No, I was mentioning potentially doing a rewatch for the first 8 episodes of Justice in the Dark before the rest of the show comes out, which I would then have to do over on Twitch because YouTube's copyright is insane. Hi, we can't stay for long. This is gonna work, but definitely up for okay, cool. And hi, I haven't seen you in a while. Hope you're doing well. Okay. Sorry, I get sidetracked very easily. So now that the biggest obstacle before him, the second prince, was gone, and the sixth prince was on his side and wouldn't compete against him, or so you think, sir, the throne would be his, sooner or later. Things were different now. The support of Prince Jing and the House of Chang'an was no longer important to the third prince. Instead, he started to become weary of Prince Jing. He started to take rash action, leaving himself open to retaliation and a loss of reputation. Instead, he'd employ peaceful measures before resorting to force. It was just a fish, after all, so Prince Jing wouldn't make a fuss, right? Sir, have you seen how attached Prince Jing is to this fish? It's frankly at an unhealthy degree, but we don't judge it because we're reading a fish book. So, you know, once Wang Xi had received Prince Jing's order, he brought the third prince to Ninghui Hall, which was used to entertain guests. Lieutenant Ming brought a lot of his men, all carrying boxes and chests, and placed them in Ninghui Hall. At, at Mu Tianming's order, all the boxes were opened, revealing the gold and silver within. I swear this man's about to be kicked out because he desired Prince James fish, and that sounds way more suggestive than I intended it to come out. I'm sorry. Um, Go. It is already dropped for what I mean. Hold on. Sorry, intervention. This is serious stuff. Go gently drop for what I mean. I sobbed, and then rewatched, and then sobbed. Also, the crabs are very dead, I think. Wait, what? What are we talking about? Are we still talking about? Oh, we're talking about the TGCF, not the Justice in the Dock. Okay, I'm following. I'm so behind. Um, Thank you. That'd be great. Okay. I have a huge fish tank now, but he still liked the crystal bottle Prince James took him around in. When he heard the third prince had come, there was no way Leo was going to miss the show. He jumped onto the crystal bottle as soon as possible and flopped around. Prince James granted his wish. It wasn't like the third prince could do anything in his own manner. But when the third prince presented the boxes full of gold and silver, the shameless little cop sank right to the bottom. Leo had never seen so much gold and silver in his life. What was the third prince doing? And got right to the point. Fifth brother, I'd like to make a deal with you. Your fish is quite nice, and I like it. Are you willing to part with it? Mutianmei smiled and pointed at the boxes his people had laid out on the ground. If this much gold and silver isn't enough, I can add more until you're satisfied. How about it? Holy hell. Mutianming wanted to buy him from his tyrant master? Illegal! Not allowed! Leo found himself desperately praying in his heart. Don't do it. Gold and silver were great, but that didn't mean he wanted to be exchanged for them. Prince Jane treated him very well, after all. He didn't want to leave him. Mm-hmm. The little cub quickly checked Prince Jane's reaction. The veins on Prince Jane's forehead were visibly throbbing, and Leo could tell that the tyrant was really angry. Seeing this, the little cub calmed down right away and continued watching to see how his master was going to reject the brazen third prince. Speaking of which, the third prince had never given him a second glance. So why did he suddenly want to buy him? It must be because the emperor said he was auspicious. The little cub hated calculating people, acted based on what who only acted based on what others said. After the third prince proposed this deal, Prince Jing glanced at Wang Xi with a cold expression. Wang Xi didn't care about any third or second prince. He only recognized His Highness Prince Jing. Prince Jing clearly wasn't happy, so Wang Xi loudly said, "There's no need to continue, Your Highness. My prince won't sell his fish." Oh, surprised, said, "Do you think the price I offered was not enough? What about 10,000 taels of gold and 100,000 taels of silver?" He was becoming increasingly uncertain. If it, even if it was auspicious, this was way too expensive. But if it could help him become the crown prince, then so be it. Leah didn't think he'd be worth so much. He disliked the third prince, but he couldn't help but wiggle around proudly. Fish getting an ego boost, my goodness. Could kill, the third prince would have died a couple thousand times over already. She glanced at Pinstring's icy expression and said, "It's not a matter of price. This fish is His Highness's beloved pet. So even if you come with millions of gold seals and tens of millions of silver seals, His Highness won't sell him." Leah was super moved. In the eyes of the Tyrant, he was worth more than a mountain of gold. The little carp finally understood the full meaning of priceless pet fish. I swear when she was like, he's the beloved pet, he's not just the priceless one. Prince Jean definitely wouldn't give much respect to someone who tried to purchase fish. So he had one to take the third and took all his gold and silver out. Lieutenant Ming hadn't expected to be treated this way and left with a sour look on his face. At last, annoying Prince, at last the annoying third prince was gone. Lear happily flicked his tail at his master, wanting Prince Jane to take him to the big pond to play, but Prince Jane turned his head to the side and wouldn't look at him. What now? The little carp wasn't sure why his master was suddenly mad at him, so he could only cutely wiggle at him. Being cute, and he couldn't resist pulling the cute fish over to pet him until he trembled. It had been upsetting when the carp spirit stopped swimming the moment he saw all the gold and silver the third prince brought. In a fit of anger, Prince Jing ordered all the workers to replace the white stones that the little carp liked to sleep on with round silver stones, and the leaf blankets with handkerchiefs made of gold silk. This prince is so extra, my goodness. Embroidered with aquatic plants. Overnight, Leo suddenly found that his bed and blanket had become shiny. "Ah, master, I love you to death," the little corpse bird yelled inwardly, hugging the blanket and refusing to let go as he rolled around on his bed. Like, just when you think it can't get more ridiculous. But I still hope it's the same for that too. Yes, we can only hope. I'm also hoping they keep the Chinese video, but if they dub it with Japanese, I'm still watching it because we're not looking at gift horse in the mouth, okay? Chapter 42. Teaching fish to write. The system had been giving Leo a break for a while now, but that night, as he rolled around in his golden embroidered blankets, at last understanding what it meant to be treated like a priceless pet fish, it finally spoke up again. "Congratulations, user. The assessment of your main mission has been completed, and the user can enter the next main mission." Is it finally time to move on? Leo wondered. He had never worried about the assessment. The Tyrant Master treated him very well, so he had full confidence that he could continue with the main mission. Although he had accepted the quarter side quest, he'd been leaving it alone and hadn't made any progress because the prompt was so strange. It had been a while since he'd done a main mission, and he actually kind of missed it. He immediately answered the system to check. Just as the system said, you could click on the new main mission called Tyrant's Pet Fish for revitalizing the family. He thought the name of the mission was strange, but he did sort of remember it from the first time he'd ever entered the system. Didn't the system say the direction of the main mission would be determined by the assessment? He didn't see anything different from before. He clicked on the revitalizing mission. This main mission was similar to Priceless Wet Fish, and he had several steps to carry out. The prompt was to improve the Tyrant and fish pet's life. The first step of the mission was indulge with the Tyrant. Hold on. How come it felt like the fish scamming system had become even more of a scammer after the vacation? What in the world was the connection between revitalization and indulging? And what was indulging supposed to mean? Did that mean he had to go drinking with the Tyrant? Leah had sampled green plum wine before, so he knew that he got drunk easily. Getting scammed by the mission of drink requirements. Like, is the system gonna turn me into an alcoholic? We don't know. Um, hey, agreed the system. Would you rather become fish bones or fish ash? Forget it. Neither of those options were appealing, so he'd have to do as he was told and carry out his mission. To pump himself up, he looked at the reward first. This time, it wasn't doubled stats or new skill, but a mysterious reward. Obtaining one of the Tyrant's secrets. Ooh. Leo's first impulse was to reject it entirely. He didn't really want to know any of Pinchin's secrets. That was his private business. It was migrated fish. He already knew a lot about Prince Jane from the novel, so this reward was a bit useless to him. Leo decided to push his luck, despite the earlier threats. Is there no fish plush like last time? It would be nice if he could have another plush. He transformed often now, and it wasn't good to leave the tank empty, so he really wanted another one. Christian hadn't returned to the plush from before, and that one was different from his current size and shape anyway. The fish scamming system had probably never met a user who wanted to pick out their own reward like that. After a period of silence, the system replied, according to the user's suggestion, the main reward of revitalizing the family has been updated. Please take a look. Oh no. What the hell did he just get himself into? I'm nervous. I thought Langwan G was extra when drunk. Prince Jing is 110 times extra and hasn't had a job to drink. Exactly. Yeah, no. It's intense. I was surprised. Would the system really make changes because of something he said? He went to check the indulge mission. Sure enough, there was a fish pillow listed as a reward now. He was extremely happy about this change. On a whim, Leah had a thought. Since the rewards could be changed, could this indulging be changed as well? How was the fish supposed to indulge with his tyrant master? Sob, sob, sob. It was much too difficult. This time, the fish scanning system stayed silent. Okay, I can see right through you. You can change anything except things that involve scanning fish. Is that it? Leo was kicked out of the system and, still wrapped in his golden blanket, started to think about how he could indulge his Prince Jane. If they had to drink, then there had to be wine, right? While the little carp was wondering how he was going to get hold of some wine to complete his mission, chaos descended outside. A couple of thieves snuck into Prince James Manor in the middle of the night and made it to the wall before they were caught by Longbourn and the guards. Ever since the fish pond was finished, the security around Prince James Manor had tightened. When the third prince left, with a sullen look on his face after he offered to buy the fish and was refused, Huang Shi kept his guard up and reminded the guards to keep an eye out at night, but he didn't think the thieves would actually come. He immediately reported it to Prince James. Did the idiot's third prince really just decide to kidnap a fish? Do we not have standards? Prince Ring glanced at the once again unconscious fish in the fish tank. He used to think that the fish was sick every time this happened, but now he surmised that the carp's birth was meditating. I love how everything makes sense in his head. Ring decided it wasn't necessary to distract Xiaoye with this information, as he would be protecting him anyway. Tied up, they weren't willing to admit that who they took orders from. The guards found a couple fish nets on them, though, making their purpose very clear. But the thieves hadn't been aware of the fish they were ordered to steal didn't sleep in the fish pond. Guangxi hated these thieves as much as he liked Master Fish. It must be the third prince, he said, teeth gritted. He wanted to steal the fish since he couldn't buy it. But the thieves refused to confess, and the fish nets alone weren't enough to prove that it was the third prince. Well, it might still be enough to, execute you, so, I mean, what's the harm in confessing if you're gonna be executed in any way? That might actually spare you an execution. Wang suggested torture. Prince Jing thought for a moment, then glanced at Wang Shi sternly and meaningfully. He immediately understood. Ordering the guards to take the thieves to the imperial governmental office and interrogate them thoroughly. If Prince Jing's manor was broken into, they should report the case to the government office and leave the interrogation to them. That was the proper way to do things. If they took matters into their own hands, someone might take the chance to retaliate. That's actually quite smart. Of course, though, after the thieves arrived at the government office, Prince James Manor could give a few suggestions as to how to make them confess as soon as possible. The sixth and third princes were discussing the latest issue at the third prince's manor. Wu Tianshao knew that Wu Tianming had visited Prince Jing to try and convince him to sell his fish. Wu Tianshao didn't agree with this move. Instead of trying to make the emperor happy through grand actions, they should just do a good job on the tasks the emperor gave them. But even though Mu Tianming trusted him, he didn't listen to everything Mu Tianshao said. So Mu Tianming made the final decision himself, and Mu Tianshao couldn't do anything about it. Hmm. But the sixth prince Mu Tianshao is very shrewd, it feels like, because a very good suggestion to be like, just do everything the emperor's asking you, because it's very sound advice. You know, you're not gonna get someone into trouble by that advice, at least not at face value. And I can't quite figure out how she's gonna play into Tim Ming before turning on him. Fine, Wu Ming had sent people to steal the fish after failing to buy it. But then he failed to steal the fish, and his people were arrested as soon as they entered Prince Jing's manor. Wu Tianshao was speechless. All that trouble for a fish that His Majesty might forget about tomorrow? Of course it's worth it. Wu Ming was stubborn. When Prince Jing rudely kicked him out of his manor, it became a bigger issue to him than a mere pet fish. Trying to make an enemy out of him, even though he was close to becoming the crown prince. chickens before they hatch. Damn. Imperial brother, it's best to stop sending people. If Prince Jane finds out. Lieutenant Shao tried to convince him, but the third prince brushed him off. What are you afraid of? My people won't incriminate me. They'll stay silent. Why are you so afraid? Even if Prince Jane suspects me, what can he do? If he does anything untoward to my people, I'll have the censorates punish him for abusing his power. Let's see if he can even keep his title of prince. Incredible. Lieutenant Shao rubbed his temples in stress. All the same, it's not good that Prince Jane caught them. We should stop trying to steal the fish. Yeah, but he might be like working on a sunk cost fallacy at this point, you see. Hmm. Lieutenant Ming clearly didn't want to give up. So you think a mute should have an auspicious sign instead of you or me? Of course not. Lieutenant Shao smiled and gave him a look. Since it's an auspicious sign, I'm sure Father will ask the Imperial Astrological Bureau about it. I feel like I'm just being inundated with some twisters. The Imperial Astrological Bureau, Lieutenant Ming's eyes showed. This could indeed be a way to get rid of constraint. But Father himself called it an auspicious sign. Even the Imperial Astrological Bureau might not refute him. Why would they need to refute it? Lieutenant Shao's warm expression didn't change as he asked, smiling. Has the brother forgotten the theory of too far is as bad as not far enough? I'm scared he's basically gonna kind of turn the Emperor against Prince Jing by suggesting that Prince Jing is somehow selfish for keeping the auspicious sign for himself or something like that. Well, Tim Ming paused for a second before he understood what the sixth prince meant, and he started laughing wildly. As the sixth prince predicted, the emperor summoned the Imperial Astrological Bureau officials not long after, and the third prince made his move according to the sixth prince's suggestion. There weren't many Imperial Astrological Bureau officials, but they were so important that a single word from them could sway a situation. Prince Jing naturally had few of his own people planted in such an important department. Prince Jing also had a selfish motive when he took his fish to greet the emperor. So yeah, had changed a lot, and he might change in the future too. News of it would reach the emperor sooner or later, and Prince Jing wanted to let him know preemptively so that he could find an excuse for Xiaoye to cover up the fact that he was a Yao. He's such a thoughtful tyrant. We love to see it. If things don't go well, Prince Jing was also prepared for the bureau to speak with the emperor. Ralph believed that Xiaoyu's new golden scales were a good omen, which saved Prince Jing a lot of trouble. Prince Jing had guessed that the emperor would eventually consult the Imperial Astrological Bureau and ask them to cooperate. So when the third prince made his move, Prince Jing caught wind of it soon after. Thank goodness. We have a very small tyrant here. Absolutely. Sorry, give me a second. Wu Ming was so vicious that he wanted the bureau to tell the emperor that the golden-scaled fish was showing signs of transforming into a dragon. In this dynasty, only the emperor could use the dragon pattern and call himself the true dragon and son of the heaven. If a fish raised by a prince looked like it might turn into a dragon, the emperor would definitely put his guard up. When that happened, not only would Prince Jing be in trouble, for anyone associated with him to escape from a disaster, especially Xiaoye. Luckily, he received the news beforehand and wouldn't let that happen. The third prince ordered someone to invite a senior monk in case the Emperor questioned the Imperial Astrological Bureau. That way, he'd have two separate forces speaking in his favor. But Prince James wasn't going to back down either. He wrote a letter and had Wang Shi send it out immediately. He predicted that another storm was coming, but he'd protect Shire no matter what. The fact that the plot has now genuinely become fish related is just kind of hilarious. Luckily, he perceived the news beforehand and wouldn't let that happen. Oh, wait, sorry. After he dealt with the serious business, Prince Jing returned to his room, only to see a figure he'd been waiting for. Shia had transformed into a human, and was wearing blue silk robes embroidered with golden branches. He was humming an unknown melody as he bent over to smooth out the bed. Prince Jing stared at him from afar, wanting to approach but afraid of disturbing him. So he just appreciated Shia's figure as the young man hummed the tune. Every young man and woman he'd met before all tied their waist sashes tightly, but Shia didn't seem to know how. His was tied casually in a messy knot, hanging loose around his hips. A bare hint of the outline of his slim waist was visible, since Jane could have easily wrapped one arm around it. It was like a delicate willow that could snap at any moment. Prince Jing acknowledged this was a bit over the top, but his mind still automatically made this comparison. Further down, concealed beneath the blue robes, was a slightly raised, round. Prince Jing looked away immediately. Damn, it's a fish. And smiled as he ran over to bow to him. Since he got back from the palace, he'd been carefully watching how the servants in the manor greeted the prince, and he performed one that looked about the same. He turned into a human this time because he had promised to stay in Prince manor and help him take care of his fish. So he had to show his face in front of Prince Jinger occasionally to show that he was actually working, even if he was just feeding himself. Mia was extremely grateful that Prince Jing had made such a huge fish pond for him. Fish couldn't talk, so he couldn't express his thanks in any way other than giving him a little fish kiss. And even though he transformed into a human and could talk now, Prince Jing didn't know he was his fish. So if he casually thanked Prince Jing on behalf of the fish, the prince might treat him like a monster. All Ria could do was tidy up the room after feeding himself as an expression of silent thanks. They are so weird, but I love how it just works. Leah looked around the whole room and couldn't find anything to improve. In the end, the only thing he could do was mess up the bed and make it again. He didn't expect to see Prince Jing after he'd completed this one single task. Seeing the fish in its human form made the most of Prince Jing's anger towards the third prince disappear. He stepped forward and grabbed Leah's hand, dragging him along with him. It was something he wanted to do for a long time. Leo was startled to be suddenly whisked away, but silently cautioned himself that when he was a fish, he couldn't go against his master, and when he was a human, he couldn't go against a prince. With Leo in tow, Prince Jing quickly arrived at his table and had him sit down. Leo was a little panicked. Was he going to ask him questions again? To be honest, one of the reasons Leo transformed into a human this time was because he wanted to find out where the wine was in Prince Jing's manor. Green plum wine was hard to get your hands on, so if he was going to indulge, he needed to find where the normal wine was first. Then he could grab a jar, mix it with some water, and somehow make Prince Jamie drink it with him. If he diluted it first, He wouldn't embarrass himself too badly, right? And Leo who claims he's straight giving a fish kiss. That's not gay if I'm a fish. I mean, you can't argue with that, can you? Had a plan in mind. He wouldn't contradict or debate with his parents. He'd just pretend he was still a fish, obediently listening to what Prince Jane wanted him to do. Prince Jane laid out some paper and a brush, then handed an inkstick and inkstone to Leah. Leah laughed, startled. Your Highness, do you want me to grind ink? Prince Jane nodded lightly. So he wants me to grind ink for him first before I answer questions? Huh. Leah was complaining internally, but he still ground the ink very seriously. Soon the thick black ink appeared. Leah put down the inkstick and thoughtlessly rubbed his nose, leaving behind a smear of ink on the tip of his nose without noticing. This reminded Kingfinger of the time Shahir was covered in ink stains, and he couldn't help the upward twitch of his lips. After the year grounded the ink, Prince Jane gave him a brush. He doesn't want me to answer questions. He wants me to write something. He rolled up his sleeves. He clutched at the brush awkwardly, almost like he was holding chopsticks. Please let me know what you want me to write, Your Highness. And it'd be best if I could get a reward, like a jar of wine or something. I was just worrying about what kind of excuse I'd need to get one. Crude grip surprised Prince Jane. No wonder the brush he used last time had frayed. But Prince Jane didn't judge Shahir for not knowing how to write. He got up and stood behind him. Confused, Leah stared at him curiously. Prince Jane tried his hardest to not look at Shahir's pale, exposed wrists as he reached out to cover the hand that was holding the brush with his own. He gently encircled Shahir in his arms and turned him slightly to correct his awkward posture. Leah blushed, very flustered. He wasn't illiterate, but he didn't know how to use the brushes they had in ancient times. Prince Jane was probably just teaching him how to hold a brush and write, but this was way too close. Prince Jane's hand was holding his. Prince Jane's arms were supporting him, and he could feel his warm breath on his ear. When he looked back, all around him, up, down, left, right, Prince Jane was surrounding him. One of Leah's ears went completely red. He thought uneasily. This is just a normal lesson. Don't think about anything crazy. Prince James' calligraphy is quite good, and he's willing to teach me. Don't waste his time. Is this gonna check off the thing about, like, indulging him? Because I feel like the moment that happens, Shahir is gonna have the shock of his life. My goodness. Prince Jane held his hand just like that and taught him how to write a proper, correct fish character. Writing wasn't that hard after all. And then we have a very shocked and concerned Shahir, but it's absolutely beautiful. Let me quickly show it to you guys, because damn, it is so cute. Catch up later. Work keeps interrupting and I'm trying to listen. Bye guys. Bye. A version of the pottery scene and the movie Ghost. Oh my goodness. I always just refer to it as like the learning to play pool scene. My goodness. Okay, what is our time looking like? Okay, we're still good. Leo was completely immersed in his fallings. If he was in fish form, his tail would have confidently pointed up to the sky. He didn't realize until he turned back into a fish that he'd forgotten to ask for a reward. The Prince Jing had been teaching him how to write the entire time, so it's not like he could ask for a reward. Leah was a little embarrassed. It seemed that Prince Jing had expertly thwarted his plans. I so badly want the system to announce that the indulging thing is done because I don't think that was at all in Xiaoye's realm of what indulging meant. Chapter 43 The Fish Protecting His Master. The Emperor summoned Prince Jing to the palace again, and this time he specifically insisted that Prince Jing bring his fish. Said Princess Pam's or Prince Jing's counterparts. But since it was his first time being mentioned in an imperial edict, he was quite nervous. He jumped onto the crystal vessel cooperatively, waiting to be put inside. Prince Jing's expression was a little dark, but he patted the fish's head gently. Whatever was troubling him, it wasn't the ear. With the same hand, had intimately held his own while teaching him how to write, so he hid away shyly. It wasn't long before his fishy nature took over, though, and he came back out, wanting to be pet again. He could tell that Prince Jing was in a bad mood. He didn't know why, but he hoped Prince Jing would feel better soon. Xiaoye asking for pets finally made Prince Jing smile a little. He petted his fish. Prince Jing brought him into the palace as the imperial edicts commanded. Outside of Qianqing Palace, Outside of Qianqing Palace, they were greeted personally by head eunuch Liu. When they entered the palace, they saw the emperor sitting on the throne with several other people dressed like officials. Strangely enough, the third and sixth princes were also there. Liu was confused. Last time, when there was a fire in the palace, the third and sixth princes made a trip to the palace to check on the emperor. But why were they there now? The third prince was rash, while the sixth prince was devious. Together, they couldn't be underestimated. And as soon as Prince Jing walked into the palace with his fish, the two princes' gazes turned to him, making the fish a little nervous. As a result, Leah couldn't stop darting glances back over towards them. The Emperor smiled when he saw Prince Jing. Tianqi, good timing. Since your fish is growing golden scales, I had the Imperial Astrological Bureau do a reading. So that's what was going on. Leah nodded to himself. The Emperor had summoned him because of the whole auspicious thing. It would be difficult to convince the general populace that this fish was auspicious just because the Emperor said so. After all, it would be a bit ridiculous for the Emperor to declare a sign of auspiciousness for himself. But if the Imperial Astrological Bureau confirmed it, then the year would be the real deal. He so badly just wants to be an auspicious fish. I mean, I guess I can't blame him. I just find it so funny. He's just collecting titles left, right, and center. The Emperor had just finished speaking when a solemn official came out, spouting a lot of official language that Liu couldn't understand, which ended with, "Congratulations, Your Majesty. A fish growing golden scales is truly a rare auspicious sign. We took this in conjunction with the celestial phenomena that has occurred recently, and the Ziwei star is slowly rising and shining dazzlingly. This means that our empire is peaceful, and the people content. Everything is progressing smoothly. This is all beneficial to both our empire and Your Majesty." The Ziwei star Polaris represents the Emperor in Chinese astrology. Shaw was praising him with such refined language, the little cub couldn't help but raise his tail proudly. He'd always thought that astrologers must be highly adept at saying exactly what the Emperor wanted to hear. His status as an auspicious sign was practically a foregone conclusion. Don't get cocky now, I'm worried. The emperor's unease over the fire in Zhongxue Palace had vanished from his thoughts, and he nodded, smiling. Very good. Those are my thoughts as well. The Imperial Astrological Bureau officials received a sizable reward and thanked him, satisfied. Well, father, is that it? The third prince had waited for a while, and this was the conclusion he got? Wasn't the Imperial Astrological Bureau supposed to say that the fish growing golden scales was a sign of an impending dragon transformation? Why didn't the people he planted in the bureau do what he wanted? Confused, the Emperor asked, That's it. What else would there be? It sounds as if you believe there would be more. No, that's not what I meant. By now, the third prince had realized that something had probably gone wrong, but he refused to just let go of this opportunity. He clenched his teeth and said, Royal Father, I'm unfamiliar with how the Imperial Astrological Bureau operates. Does only one official do the reading, or is it several? If it's just one person, is it possible for them to miss something? Mutinming thought the problem must just be because his people weren't given the opportunity to meet the emperor. So if they just switched the official making the announcement, everything would go as planned. The person who had just congratulated the emperor was the director of the Imperial Astrological Bureau, named Sun Samao. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And smiled at Mutinming. Your Highness, that's a strong accusation. Reading the stars for His Majesty and the Empire is an event of utmost importance, and the result you just heard was the conclusion that the entire Imperial Astrological Bureau came to. If Your Highness doesn't trust me, the answer will remain the same, even if you ask for someone else. Leo was a bit startled by the third prince. Why did he suddenly ask for an alternate opinion when everything was going fine? He felt like there must be sinister motives at work. Alarmed, his whole fish body shook, and Prince reached into the crystal bottle to touch his back with his fingers, stroking him from time to time as if to comfort and calm him down. Leo naturally was easily soothed by his Tyrant master. The third prince wasn't anyone important. He was just cannon fodder, while Prince Jing had the protagonist's payload and was destined to be the next emperor. He was already piggybacking off of Prince Jing, so he had nothing to worry about. One had to be skilled to work at the Imperial Astrological Bureau. Sun Mao wasn't high in rank, but his words still held considerable weight in front of the emperor. When the third prince questioned Director Sun for no reason, he even managed to respond graciously. The emperor trusted Sun Mao, so he felt the third prince was behaving immaturely. Ming, he scolded him sternly, don't criticize when you don't remember how the bureau works. Scolded, the third prince lowered his head and gave the sixth prince a pointed, sidelong look. Mutin Xiao immediately understood and stepped forward to speak up. Royal Father, my brother isn't talking nonsense. We heard a commoner's child singing a nursery rhyme that contradicted what the Imperial Astrological Bureau said. We were afraid that we'd misunderstood the nursery rhyme, so we had some senior monks come and take a look. Xiao is definitely more clever, which is very concerning because I feel like he's going to be the last one standing between Jing and everything else. The Emperor heard the words nursery rhyme. His heart skipped a beat. He stared at the sixth prince. What nursery rhyme? There are words and phrases that are blasphemous, so I dare not repeat them. Not convenient. Please take a look at this instead. The sixth prince took out a piece of paper he prepared from his robes and handed it to Luo Sheng to give to the emperor. When the emperor received the paper, he read it carefully. Though his expression didn't change, Leah could tell the cold atmosphere had settled around him. What was on the paper? Why did it make the emperor so unhappy? It wouldn't be a false claim like 3 generations of the Tang dynasty later, there will be a female leader with the last name Wu, right? Oh my goodness. After the emperor read it, he calmly gestured at head eunuch Luo to pass the paper to Prince Jing. When the paper landed in Prince Jing's hands, he opened it, and his eyes swept over the words. He read quickly, but historical characters were difficult for Liu to decipher. He only saw the phrases, golden scales do not belong to the pond, but will climb into the sky as a dragon. Wait, what? He wasn't an expert at ancient Chinese, but he could tell that these words were just trying to scapegoat him. The innocent fish! Just trying to blame him, it was also implicating Prince Jing. On the surface, it was saying that the fish could turn into a dragon, but wasn't it actually referring to Prince Jing ascending the throne? Prince Jing would indeed ascend to the throne in the end, but where did this nursery rhyme come from? Were they afraid the emperor wouldn't make the connection to Prince Jing? The emperor was the head of state after all. Even if he was sympathetic to Prince Jing, he couldn't ignore this provocation. Tianqi, what do you think? The emperor calmly asked Prince Jing. Right now, nobody knew what the emperor was thinking. Mu Tianming and Mu Tianshao only hoped that the emperor would become weary of Prince Jing. Once Prince Jing had discovered the Sixth Prince's dangerous plan, however, he had someone secretly follow the Sixth Prince, and discovered by chance that the Sixth Prince had been sending people to teach children nursery rhymes. Even though they were just nursery rhymes, Prince Jing was prepared. He glanced at Wang Xi, and she stepped forward and said in place of his master, Your Majesty, this is complete nonsense. His Highness is also confused as to why such a rhyme was spread among the people with the intention of ruining the relationship between father and son. His Highness implores Your Majesty to conduct a thorough investigation to see when the rhyme was spread. If it was just the past few days, the Emperor had only recently discovered that Prince Jing's fish was changing scales, so it was possible that someone was deliberately taking advantage of this incident. The Emperor gave it some thought and nodded. What Prince Jing says is reasonable. I also intended to do this. He didn't get angry at Prince Jing over the nursery rhyme. Instead, he ordered his imperial guards to investigate and find out when it was first heard and who it had originated from. The attempts to frame Prince Jing continued to fail. The third prince anxiously glanced at the sixth prince, who looked calm on the surface, but was sweating a little on the inside. This was truly a devious move the sixth prince had come up with, but it backfired since the emperor didn't pay attention to the nursery rhyme itself. He was more interested in when the nursery rhyme first appeared, which was something that could be easily investigated and found out. It was then the eminent monks that the sixth prince had summoned arrived. When he saw the row of monks, Liu had been caught off guard and wasn't operating at full capacity. Remembered that there was a similar plot in the novel where monks were involved. Oh, this is going to be interesting because obviously it would have changed a little bit considering the fish plot that we now have going on, but thanks to a little butterfly named Leo flapping his wings all over the place, the original plot was now a mess. In the novel, when the sixth prince and Prince Jing were fighting for the throne, a monk was ordered to lie to the emperor to frame Prince Jing. However, the rumor in the novel was Prince Jing was born mute and is therefore inauspicious. Now instead it was a fish growing golden scales will turn into a dragon. Sadly, the one makes more sense than the other for me personally. Especially considering the attitude that both Mu Tianming and string. It's nonsense. It wasn't rare for fish to have golden scales. For example, koi almost always had golden scales. The emperor himself had many koi in his own lotus pond. So why would a carpet that was meant to be food transform into a dragon before them? That was a logical argument, but it couldn't be used to convince the emperor. Leo thought to himself, since these were both rumors thought up by the sixpence, they should be the same in principle. Would the same flaw appear here? In the novel, the sixpence reigned finished in too hastily and couldn't find any trusted eminent monks to help him. Most monks weren't foolish enough to get involved in a conflict between princes. Thus, the monks he found were all fake ones. They had been freshly shaven, and they didn't even have any uh, precept scars. Precept scars are ritual burn scars given to monks in some Buddhist practices after they have taken their vows and shaved their heads. Ooh. Um, so we're at the top of page 70. I think I'm quickly gonna take a break, just get some tea back for at least another hour, hopefully two. Okay, I think we should be back and fine again and turn the audio and everything like that. Let me quickly go back over to where we left off. Hi. Okay, so we were on chapter 70 for anyone who is still following along with their own volumes, and I just realized my pillow. Sorry. um. Oh, messed up my bookmark. Yeah, just let me know if the audio is okay. But other than that, I think we're good, and we can just get going. And Leah stared at the monk in front of him unwaveringly, trying to see if anything was off. Since he was staring so diligently, he slowly noticed that the monk would use his neck to rub his collar occasionally. The movement stood out. Leo suddenly realized that if he had shaved his head in a hurry, there would be itchy little hairs left behind, and they must be making him uncomfortable. Prince had brought a fake monks this time as well. As long as they could expose the fake monks in front of the emperor, no matter how eloquently they spoke, there was no way the emperor would believe them. Okay, but also, like, would that not potentially lead to jail time at the very least? Potential consequences for Prince Shao as well if it's discovered that he was connected. Splash some water onto Prince Jing again and get them both out of there. But the sixth prince didn't give Prince Jing any time to breathe at all. He hurriedly told the Emperor, "Royal Father, the investigation into the nursery rhyme needs time, and it may be wrong. I invited these eminent monks so they don't have to. So why did we have them examine the brother's fish instead?" Though the emperor had ordered the imperial guards to investigate the nursery rhyme, a seed of doubt had been planted in his heart all the same. It wouldn't hurt to have the monks take a look at the fish, so he nodded in agreement. But the emperor didn't explicitly say that Prince Jing had to hand the fish over to the monks. Prince Jing's hand tightened on the crystal bottle's handle. Shi knew what Prince Jing was thinking, and he boldly said to the monks, "You don't have to move. His Highness will hold the crystal bottle and show you the fish." The Emperor knew Prince Jing cared about his fish a lot, and the monks could see the fish perfectly well like this. The Emperor felt a little bad for doubting Prince Jing besides, so he silently allowed it. Look at this pair of silent father-son understanding. Have the time to find an opportunity to tell Prince Jing. The sixth prince would probably be the first to refuse if he tried to make a long-term plan as he did before. Besides, the fake monks were right in front of him. Still, there was no way Leo would let the monks alienate the emperor from Prince Jing by spouting nonsense about golden scales turning into a dragon. Ugh. Prince Jing could suggest the emperor investigate the nursery rhyme because it was the first time the emperor had heard of such rumors, and he might not believe it right away. But if the monks said the same thing here and now, even lies could be believed if repeated enough times. Would the emperor still trust Prince Jing then? Leo was with Prince Jing all the time, so he knew him well. Prince Jing had no disrespectful intentions. The father-son relationship they had was troubled and hard won to begin with. It shouldn't be challenged like this. The most urgent thing was to expose those fake monks right away. As soon as they left the palace, they'd be hard to track down. There were opportunities even if he had to take a risk. While Prince Jing was walking towards the leading monk with his fish, letting them get a look, Leo ferociously slammed into the side of the crystal bottle facing the monk. His fish body strength had gone through several boosts from the system and was quite a few times stronger than before. He had put all his strength into it. There was a loud crack, and a huge hole was punched through the bottle. The little cup immediately flew towards the lead monk. Oh my goodness. My word. I know he means well, I'm just still worried. Did you watch the TGCF short film? Not yet, so no spoilers. I have received the link for it though, so I'm probably gonna try and put up a reaction for it soon-ish. I have a lot going on tomorrow, but if I can find the time, I would like to put it up tomorrow. I do have something else that's gonna be going up on Friday though, so I can't wait until Friday to put it up. Monk never expected the fish to emerge from the crystal bottle like that. Shocked, he instinctively raised his hands to block him. But it was too late. The little carp soared over his hands and landed with a smack on his shoulder. In the chaos, the system made a noise, but Leah didn't care about whatever mission had just been updated. He'd been waiting with his tail raised, aimed and ready. As soon as he landed on the monk's shoulder, his tail swept outwards. He intended to sweep off the monk's hats. If that happened, he was sure that Pinching could be able to realize that the monks were imposters. Leo was going to expose them. He no longer cared about the mission or how blasphemous it was for a cop meant to be food to sweep a monk's hat off in front of the emperor. He didn't have any time to think. All he wanted was to protect Prince Jane by providing the Sixth Prince with the by proving the Sixth Prince was trying to frame him. The monk was so frightened by the threatening fish that his mouth fell open, his hat fell to the ground, and he forgot to cover his head. There you go. Oh my goodness, just picturing a fish smashing through a bottle wall. Yeah, generally I don't think those bodies are meant to do things like that, but sure, let it go. We've let so much go up until this point, we might as well just add something to the list. The bottle and knocked the hat off the man's head. Prince Jing, meanwhile, had been keeping an eye on Charlier. As soon as he approached the monk, the carp spirit had started anxiously swimming around in the crystal bottle, so Prince Jing assumed something must be wrong. Clearly, the fish wanted to communicate something important. Functions, but he didn't think the carp spirit would ignore his own safety and leap directly onto the monk. The carp spirit had broken out of the bottle, but Prince Jing couldn't let anything happen to his fish. He had to deal with any loose ends. Most of the fragments of crystal was near his hand, and Nadia came to him in the crucial moments. While everyone was still looking at his fish, he grasped a shard tightly in his hand, slicing it open until blood dripped down. Lost their pair trying to protect each other. I'm stressed. I didn't think I'd be stressed over a fish book, but I am. Your Highness, Wang Shi shouted in shock from beside him. The Pinchling waved his hand dismissively. There wasn't much time, so this was the only way. Wang Shi stamped his foot, hesitating between bandaging Pinchling and protecting Master Shire. In the end, he chose to protect Master Shire because Pinching's expression told him to. He couldn't go against Pinching's wishes. Having swept off the monk's hat, the little carp fell to the ground, flapping. She quickly grabbed the spare crystal bottle and put the fish back into it. Now that its fish was safe, Pinching focused on finding the monk's flaws, and he quickly realized that there were no scars to speak of on the bare head of the monk, whose hat had been knocked off. This was a fake monk. This was what Chaoyu wanted him to know. Chen-Chi, what happened? Your hand. The emperor had blinked, and in that short amount of time, the fish had already leapt onto the monk. With another glance, he realized that Pinching's hand was injured. I'm thinking Prince Jing was basically he injured his hand to imply that he accidentally broke the bottle, and that the fish did not just miraculously on its own decide to break a bottle and jump out of his hand to attack a monk. Um, so I'm wondering if that's the case. He realized that Prince Jing's hand was injured. She desperately wants to speak for his master, but Prince Jing stopped him. He instead wrote on the front of Xi's robes, Royal Father, please hear me out. I realized that the monk was an impostor who had not gone through the ordinary ceremony. Desperate times calls for desperate measures, so I threw the crystal bottle at him to force him to reveal his fault. That's not. Sorry. Sorry about that. Been on edge ever since he heard about the nursery rhyme. Now he looked back and forth from the blood-stained robes to the crystal fragments on the ground, his heart in chaos. In a panic, the fake monk put his hat on again, but it was too late. The emperor ordered the guards to hold him down firmly and take his hat off to check his head. Their inspection revealed he really was unordained. The emperor understood now. He'd seen the fish go flying because Prince Jing had broken the crystal bottle in his haste. Prince Jing was unable to speak and couldn't prove his innocence, so this was the only means at his disposal to expose the fake monks. I love it when they make things make sense for themselves. Out of habit and narrow-mindedness, the emperor had suspected Prince Jing at first and was nearly taken advantage of by a bunch of fake monks. Prince Jing's hand was still bleeding, and his face was pale. The emperor regretted his actions very much. He patted Prince Jing's shoulder and said gently, "Tianxi, my son, you've suffered. Quickly, go to the imperial physicians and have them take a look at your injury." He ordered Liu Sheng and Wang Xi to help Prince Jing to decide her to wait for the imperial physicians. The third prince and sixth prince, along with the kneeling and infantile fake monks, were all left to face the furious emperor. So, yeah, he's trying to hide the fact that the can become human, and Israel and his eyes are blue. Just an auspicious play. Glorious, and so glorious. Just a sip of tea before we go on to the next. Okay, chapter 44. I don't feel like we're going through it that fast, but we have. I just quickly want to see the amount of pages we have. Yes, 395 pages. So I don't know if we'll be able to do this one in a month. I'm kind of hoping we will. That's the pace that I was reading at before, like where we still split up into um, sessions a week. But if I extend this to 3 hours, I'm hoping that we'll still be able to keep to that. But yeah, anyway, sorry. Chapter 44, Desire. Excuse me? Desire to be sucked by a fish. Why did I just read? The imperial physicians rushed over to check Prince Jing's injured hand. But Prince Jing shielded the injury, shot a look at Wang Xi, and glanced at the crystal bottle Wang Xi had brought over. He had simply been cut by the sharp edge of the broken bottle, but Shaiye was the one who broke the bottle in the first place, so they had to check if he was all right first. Wang Xi sighed resigned and asked an imperial physician to look at the fish. Only then did Prince Jing permit the other physicians to treat him. I feel like if he'd been injured, he would have been able to see it in the color of the water. The imperial physician who was examining the fish soon came over to report that the fish was unharmed. Prince Jing nodded, but his own injury wasn't nearly so simple. The imperial physicians had to take out the shards of crystal that were embedded in his flesh one by one. Ow! It sounds painful. um, and that alone took half an hour. After that was done, the wounds needed to be cleaned and medicine was applied. Blood-stained gauze was continuously applied and removed, making Wang Shi's heart twinge with pain. He couldn't help but ask, Your Highness, does it hurt? You want this old servant to grow on it? Shame they really have like a very father-son relationship. It's so cute. Prince Jing wasn't in that much pain anymore, but Wang Shi's words were enough to make his expression darken. Still, it's cute. I don't care what Prince Jing says with his face. It's cute. Imperial physicians are gonna become vets real fast. Yeah, definitely. Oh goodness. The imperial physicians had dealt with Prince Jing's injury. They reminded him to keep his wounds dry and went to report to the emperor. Wang Shi furrowed his brows and hurried to move the crystal bottle away, afraid that his highness would immediately start playing with his fish again. It's a fair concern. Prince Jing had to signal for Wang Shi to move the crystal bottle closer. Wang Shi obeyed, but he still put the crystal bottle in a spot that was out of Prince Jing's reach. Frustrated, Prince Jing ordered him to go outside and stand guard. Wang Shi did comply, walking out of the room, but he was clearly unwilling to leave with how many times he looked back. Shortly after Wang Shi left, Prince Jing left his seat and stood in the front of the table where the crystal bottle stood. The fish inside was no longer as buried as he had been when he broke out of the bottle and stared at the prince pitifully. The little cup had needed to be scooped up from the ground after he showed off his abilities and knocked the hat off the fake monk. But his new fish scales were truly quite powerful. After all the scales, the fish was still lively and active, and he felt like he could have assailed even more monks without issue. Still feel a bit unsatisfied, even after all that. But unfortunately, he didn't get any opportunity to stop the third and sixth princes. But those two had been willing to bring fake monks before the emperor, so at least there was no way the emperor would let them off easily. After his attack, Liu had been smugly basking in his success with no thought for his own safety, when he suddenly heard Wang Shi shout in surprise. Liu had looked around only to discover that Prince Jing was bleeding. He'd frozen, unable to work out how the prince had been injured, since he'd broken out of the crystal bottle in the opposite direction. At most, Prince Jing should have only been startled. What's more, he'd made a huge fuss in front of the emperor. He slapped Noble a cheer in the face. The emperor hadn't been there to see it. But this time the emperor had witnessed everything firsthand. It was surprising that he hadn't been punished. Soon, though, the emperor's furious scolding had made him understand that Prince Jing had taken the blame for his son's strange behavior. Chosen to take months, but he jumped out while ignoring his own safety and any potential consequences. His special nature definitely would have been revealed by his actions, but because Prince Jing hurt his own hand on purpose and pretended that the fish was flying out with a special plan, the fish remained safe. Prince Jing himself, though. Sorry. Leah, safe in his crystal bottle, had gazed at Prince Jing from afar. He didn't know how serious Prince Jing's injury was, only the Emperor's features were now twisted. and the imperial physicians were descending upon Prince Jing. Despite all this, Prince Jing had still insisted that an imperial physician check his fish first. There really was no need for that, of course. He was fine, so there wasn't much to check. But he was touched by Prince Jing's protectiveness, and still had no way to thank him. The crystal bottle separated him from everyone else, and from his fishing perspective, he could only see the bustling backs of the imperial physicians. Leah couldn't break another crystal bottle, and gave Prince Jing any more trouble, so all he could do was press against the bottle wall and watch. Now, as the two of them stared at each other, he severely regretted not thinking before taking action. If only Prince Jing hadn't gotten hurt. One of Prince Jing's hands was injured, so he tried to open the crystal bottle with his other hand. The little pup immediately swam to the mouth of the bottle. He wanted to get closer, but remembered the time he'd accidentally flipped the bottle over. He didn't want to be too hasty. Instead, he just looked up at Prince Jing and wagged his tail like a good boy. Oh my goodness. Mm. Prince Jing placed an uninjured hand into the water when the pitiful fish who had caused so much trouble swam over and rubbed his fingers. The imperial physician and Wang Shi had both said the fish was fine, but Prince Jing could tell that his fish was feeling a bit low. Maybe he was frightened and sad. Prince Jing patted the fish's head. Learned what? He was somewhat sleepy from the blood loss, so once he confirmed that his fish was fine, he sat back down and leaned to one side so he could take a little nap. He was quite worried about Prince Jing's energy. He didn't speak in his inconvenient fish body, and he and Prince Jing were the only ones in the side hole. So as soon as Prince Jing's back was to him, Leah transformed into human form. He now had a proper place in Prince Jing's manor, and because Prince Jing took pity on him for not having any possessions, he gave him a lot of old unworn clothes. Leo wasn't sure exactly what was appropriate or fashionable in his style of clothing, so he just picked two of his favorites and kept them in his inventory, so he wouldn't have to worry about running around looking for clothes when he was home. I'm glad the inventory thing is like coming back in a bad way because as much as you don't want to think about like why is he wearing clothes in his human form and not in his fish form, having answers to small things like that really helps in terms of suspension of disbelief. Suspension of belief, not suspension of disbelief. My bad, sorry. My words are hard. Out of the daybed, bending to look at Prince Jing's hand. The imperial physicians had bandaged it well, so his hand was wrapped in a thick gauze. It hadn't been very long, but some blood had already started to seep through. Leo felt so bad that he worriedly chewed his lip. When he noticed that Prince Jing was lying on his side without a blanket, he was afraid that Prince Jing would catch a cold on top of being injured, so he pulled a thin blanket over his grave over him, wanting to take good care of him. Prince Jing had been secretly waiting for this fish for a long time. He even pretended to fall asleep to get the fish to transform. As soon as the ear came closer, he turned around and looked at him with a smile. Leo suppressed the tearful heat surging in his eyes and said, embarrassed, "Did you not fall asleep, Johannes? Does your wound still hurt?" Leo's heart ached so much, it must be even worse for Prince Jing. It's kind of cute. The cream the imperial physicians used had an analgesic. I don't think it was and had already stopped feeling the pain. But when he saw Shahir's eyes full of worry, he hesitated. For some reason, he found himself nodding. If it hurt, would Shahir rush to go on it for him the way Wangxi did? He didn't need Wangxi to blow on it, but he would think about it if Xiaoyu offered. My goodness. Yeah, no, I assumed as much. I'm just not 100% on the pronunciation. To say those words, but Xiaoyu wasn't thinking of that at all. He thought Punching was still in pain, so he scurried over to the jade box that contained snacks and took out a couple of peach blossom pastries. Your Highness, if it still hurts, eat something sweet. It'll stop hurting when you eat something delicious. Ah, yes, the age-old problem solver, food. The corpse bird said, forcing a smile. Punching lightly coughed, somewhat disappointed. Oh well. Since Shoya wasn't going to roll on his wound, eating the sweets he gave him was fine too. But his right hand was injured, so he couldn't really move it. It took a moment for Leo to realize the problem. I'll help you, he said. He took out the pastry and broke it into bite-sized pieces. In ancient times, princes wouldn't eat just anything someone offered them, so Leo tasted a piece first. You can eat this, it's not poisoned. I feel fine. Please feel free to have some. Thought that was a bit excessive, as he trusted Shaya, but it wasn't time to mention that. Mia brought the rest of the peach blossom pastries to Prince lips and watched as he slowly ate two pieces. He couldn't help but think that this used to be how his master fed his fish, but the fish was feeding his master. Leo's eyes were still warm. At first, he managed to keep the tears under control, but once he got distracted, a couple of teardrops fell. Prince was taken aback, and Leo panically wiped at his red eyes. Prince didn't know he was his fish, so it would scare him to see Leo shedding tears so suddenly. Leo hurried to explain, I'm sorry, Your Highness. Some sand got into my eyes, so it was easy to say, but emotions were like flood waters bursting out of a dam. Once it found an opening, it couldn't be reined back. Tears were just the same. I actually very much agree with him. That's a very good comparison. Leo wasn't the kind of person who liked to cry, but he covered his face and his shoulders heaved for 8 minutes before he finally managed to calm himself down, his face soaked. He felt like he'd embarrassed himself immensely. Sob, sob, sob. I wanted to take care of my master, but I let him see something so humiliating. Leo's eyelids were slightly swollen, and his voice was hoarse. My apologies. I was a bit scared after I found your Majesty's injury. You found your Majesty injured. Faced with such a clumsy lie, Thurston paused, then smiled and patted Leo's hand. Unfortunately, his own hand was still wrapped in gauze, so he couldn't hold a brush and had no way to say what he wanted to say. He felt unhappy that Shaya was crying. In the end, it was his own incompetence that made Shaya worry. From beside the pillow and silently handed it to Leo. Leo wiped his face with it and smiled wetly. Does it still hurt, Your Highness? Christian sighed internally. It's not like you're going to blow on it, even if it hurts. Oh, goodness. Oh, well, poor Wang Shi accidentally set the standard for Xiaoyu here. But afraid that Xiaoyu would worry, he shook his head this time. Then you should get some more rest, said Mia. Moons heal faster when you're asleep. Really? Fridging had never heard of that before. But he did as Leah said, and shifted his body to lie down. Leah sat down on the side of the daybed, but soon got up, as if he remembered that he had to do something. Only for Fridging to grab his wrist. Your Highness, he said, distressed, I'm going to get some water for you. Leo had noticed that Pinstring's lips were dry, and he thought he might want some water to soothe his throat. Pinstring shook his head and refused. Helpless, Leo could only give in. Since Pinstring was holding his arm, it was hard for him to step away. If Pinstring wanted to sleep, then he could only watch from the side, but it wasn't as if sitting beside him was tiring. Pinstring lay quietly for a while, then opened his eyes. His deep gaze, heavy with emotion, fell on the ear. Recently, Pinstring was always looking at him like that. It was a different gaze from the one he used with the third pence and the sixpence, all wrong. Leo could always sense a slight smile in it. Is there anything else you want? He asked worriedly, not realizing how gentle his tone was. Pinstring pursed his lips. He wanted to get closer, but this fish had no self-awareness, so he could only use some other tricks to accomplish that. So Pinstring, who was wrapped in a blanket and warm all over, pretended to shiver. Entered the shamelessness stage of the unrequited love. I'm not sure. Your Highness, are you cold? Pinstring nodded at him twice, earnestly. Leo thought it was natural to feel cold after losing blood, and Tyrants were no exception. But there was no more blankets on the daybed, so Leo said hurriedly, Your Highness, please wait, I'll go find another blanket. Leo cannot read the signs at all. Leo was about to go searching when Pinstring bolted upright faster than he could, pulled him back down, and patted his shoulder, communicating that he wanted him to stay in place. Leo did as he was asked, confused, and watched helplessly as the tall, large man, wrapped in blankets, feebly head on his thighs. Jing had it in him to flirt this much. I'm kind of shocked. It feels a little bit like if Langwanji would have done this. It is just wow. Shameless indeed. Huh? So sleeping on someone's legs while cold would help? I mean, technically yes, but that's not why you're doing it. The human body was warm, so this might be more comfortable than wrapping another blanket around him. Leo's eyes had just been hot, but now it was his face's turn. He convinced himself that since Pinstring had been injured on his account, there was nothing wrong with him using his legs as a pillow. He tried his best to ignore the unfamiliar feeling on his legs. Pinstring closed his eyes, satisfied, and slightly smiled. Then he pretended to shiver again. Oh, he asked cautiously. Pinstring nodded eagerly, 3 times this time. Thinking of how his highness was wounded because of him, Leo hugged him in resignation. How about now? Jing settled in, still somewhat disappointed. His highness was so cold. He wanted someone to suck his essence. I forgot that that was like one of the things that Prince Jing had a misconception about. At least that's. Oh, shameless indeed. Okay. We're on to chapter 45. Luckily, this one is weird, but it's not as weird as the previous one. Fishy nursing. Jing was injured, so once he'd taken his medicine, he fell asleep after laying on Leo's lap for a bit. Leo boldly stared down at the Tyrant's handsome face, but after a while he found that being a pillow was hard on his waist and legs. Prince Jing had finally gotten to sleep, though, and Leah was too afraid he'd wake him to move. Being tired wasn't the most pressing matter right now. He was forced to consider how much time he had left as a human. What if he just turned into a fish right here? Leah had a sudden thought. If he turned back while Prince Jing was laying on him like this, wouldn't he get crushed under Prince Jing's head? What if he was frightened? Fair concern. I'm just wondering, like, if this doesn't count as indulging the prince, what would? Because this is a lot of indulgence already, I feel. Away before he changed back, but Prince Jing was still asleep. In his moments of conflict, worrying about being stuck between a rock and a hard place, a hot bed, sorry, the door to the side hall was cracked open. Wang Gong peeked inside. Help had arrived. He immediately blinked furiously at Wang Shi. Wang Shi immediately noticed that there was another person in the side hall, and that His Highness was resting on the person's lap. He was stunned for a moment, then scurried over. Sir? Wang Shi quickly asked, his voice low. Prince Jing had expended a lot of effort in his friendly abduction of the human fish to his manor, and of course made sure Wang Shi was informed of it. However, he didn't reveal Xiaoyu's real name. Wang Shi had at least managed to figure out that someone else's male concubine was just a beautiful misunderstanding. The young man was now a member of the residence. He was surnamed Li, and he worked only for Prince Jing. That was all Prince Jing explained, nothing else. He didn't allow anyone to ask about him either, and he decreed that no matter who ran into Li Gongzi, they were to treat him with the utmost respect, as if they were greeting Prince Jing himself. I mean, if I was Wang Xi, I would start thinking that there's a relationship going on there. I feel like Wang Xi's gonna be in on the fact that Prince Jing is in a relationship with Li before Li himself knows about it. Jing's room as they pleased. Most of the manor's residents didn't get much of an opportunity to run into the fable of Li Gongzi. However, as Prince Jing's trusted confidant, Wang Shi had glimpsed Li Gongzi's back a couple of times. From what he could glean, this Li Gongzi probably lived in his Highness's room, and his whereabouts were often unknown. Because of Prince Jing's orders, Wang Shi wasn't particularly suspicious, but he did wonder if there was something going on between the prince and this Li Gongzi. So was definitely the person Prince Jing liked. Wang Gonggong had a good memory and recalled several occasions he'd come across Li Gongzi and His Highness entangled with each other. Now that Li Gongzi was a personal servant of Prince Jing's, he would often go into His Highness's room. Coupled with the fact that Prince Jing wanted them to treat him and serve him well, that seemed to be what was happening. Right now, with Li Gongzi appearing next to Prince Jing, and with Prince Jing sleeping in his lap, Wang Shi was even more sure of the relationship between the two. However, he didn't show anything on his face. His Highness had told him several times that if he saw Li Gongzi, he wasn't to be startled or speak nonsense, but to treat him normally. Wang Shi kept this in mind and acted accordingly. Wang Shi is the real MVP, and I will continue to say this until the end of time. Yeah, our dear Wang Gong Gong needs to connect the dots. Slightly to Wang Shi. Wang Shi softly inquired about Prince Jing's entry, and Li told him what he knew. As Wang Shi was about to exit and give the two of them some privacy, Li stopped him. Wang Gong, please wait. Li pleaded quietly. I still have business to attend to, so could you help me? Wang Shi needed understood what wanted and helped him gently lift Pinching onto the daybed. Leah covered Pinching with a blanket just as the system was already beginning to count down. Crap, but is Wong Gong Gong not going to notice the empty bottle that is just standing there to one side? Have any time to say anything else to Wong Gong Gong. He ran towards the door and quickly hid behind the cabinet nearby, where he had placed a crystal bottle beforehand, just outside. Leah had a lot of experience transforming by now, and aside from keeping track of the time, he had also gotten into the habit of placing a crystal bottle or fish tank in a hidden area. When his time was almost up, he just had to hide nearby and transform, then jump into the crystal bottle or the tank. This time was no exception. Leo quickly turned back into a little cub and gathered all of his strength in his tail. Jumping around all the time was a bit too noisy and noticeable, so ever since Leo realized that he could stiffen his tail and use it as a sort of base to support his fish body for a short amount of time, he would simply use it as a little skateboard. Of course he would, because that makes total sense. Arrived in front of the crystal bottle and jumped right in. While he completed the series of dazzling moves, Wang Shi thankfully didn't even look around. He sighed in relief and started swimming happily in his crystal bottle. Once Wang Shi had made sure Pinstring was all right, he turned around to look for Li Gongzi, but realized he disappeared. He thought Li Gongzi had perhaps left again, and since His Highness had forbidden asking after Li Gongzi's whereabouts, he obeyed. But when he passed by the door of the side hall, he found that the crystal bottle was on the ground for some reason, with Master Fish in it, wagging his tail at him. Wang Shi smiled and picked up the crystal bottle, placing it in front of the bed. When His Highness woke up, he'd definitely want to see his fish first. While Prince Jing was resting in the side hall of Tianjin Palace, though, on the other side of the wall in the main hall, most of the room was kneeling in front of the Emperor. I'm so glad we're still going to get a follow-up on that, because I was wondering. Since the Sixth Prince had brought in those fake monks, the Emperor thought the fake monks and the nursery rhyme were both very suspicious. Nursery rhyme would require going out to question the common people. Sneak into Tianjin Palace were punished first. These fake monks were simply a random group of troublemakers. Unable to withstand the torture, they quickly admitted that the third prince had bribed them. See, this is why I'm worried that the sixth prince is going to be the last to survive and be the most challenging antagonist. We'll see. The Emperor immediately started scolding the third prince, who thought his position as crown prince was all but confirmed. The sixth prince, who was rarely sighted but had made a rare main stage appearance, was berated several times as well. Since he was a child, Mo Tianxiao had always understood what the most beneficial thing to do was, and as soon as he realized that things weren't going well, he knelt in an apologetic I was wrong, but I did not have any bad intentions. I heard the nursery rhyme sung among the common people and was concerned, so I wrote it down to report it to you. As for these monks, I was not aware of their fate, as I didn't imagine they would have cause to lie. These were all lapses in judgment on my part, and I won't simply believe everything I hear in the future. Hopefully one good thing of this will be that Wu Tianming will stop actually trusting Wu Tianxiao, or at least trust him a little bit less. So maybe it can at least sow discord between them. Tianxiao was extremely devious and had always been hidden behind the Tianmei. His name wasn't directly involved with the fake monks and the nursery rhyme, while the third princess was. He was never one to be an obvious schemer, so he was confident that no matter how far the emperor investigated, he wouldn't be implicated. Now that the emperor had exposed his plan, it was no big deal for him to admit his mistake. On the other hand, Wu Tianming was a little slower. By the time he started lowering himself to his knees, Wu Tianxiao had already finished his confession and said everything he was supposed to say. Royal father, I didn't do it, Wu Tianming said. I just thought there was something wrong with Prince Jing's fish. He was still in shock from the fish leaping out and knocking off the fake monk's hat. Prince Jing claimed he discovered the monk's flaw and threw the crystal bottle at him. But thinking back over it all, the third prince wasn't sure what had really happened first. Prince Jing's hand bleeding or the fish leaping out. But he felt it was the fish. See, and this is how Shalia gets you, because suddenly you're doubting your own perception of the world, and now you can't trust yourself and you can't trust the world, and then you're a mess. Mu Tianming thought the fish was very suspicious. If he could convince the emperor of this, then the issue of the monks would be irrelevant. Tianming, you still don't think you did anything wrong? After the monks' testimony, the emperor didn't want to listen to the third prince at all. The sixth prince had already admitted his wrongdoings. If the third prince was still here trying to argue, the emperor knew very well that the sixth prince often followed the third prince and helped him out. Though the sixth prince was the one who mentioned the fake news and the nursery rhyme, the monks only testified against the third prince. The sixth prince had mentioned the third prince several times in his speech too. The third prince had to have at least known about what the sixth prince did, but the sixth prince was willing to admit his mistake while the third prince wasn't. These contrasting attitudes meant that the third prince must have been the one behind all of it. Yeah, I was about to say, like, the problem is it's good to know that the emperor is kind of aware of their tied dynamic, but I feel like he thinks the sixth prince is the weak one in the situation. He's the one that's easily led. He's kind of, just the victim in all this, the unwilling participant or the ignorant participant. And obviously it's actually the other way around. When the emperor had ordered the Imperial Astrological Bureau to read the skies for Prince Jing's fish, Wu Tianming jumped out to question them, was refuted by Director Sun. Later on, the sixth prince brought up the nursery rhyme and the fake monks. Wasn't this an obvious attempt to overturn the Imperial Astrological Bureau's conclusions? The emperor suddenly remembered something else. A few days ago, Luo Sheng told him that the third prince had gone to Prince Jing's manor to buy his fish, but Prince Jing had chased him out. The emperor took it as a joke at first, but now that he thought about it, didn't the third prince think of the fish as an auspicious sign as well? Otherwise, why would he try to buy the fish? Why would he change his attitude in just a few days? The nursery rhyme, the fake monks, they were all attempts to use the fish and make him suspicious of Prince Jing. But why did the third prince do this? I appreciate that he's actually coming to the correct conclusions here instead of kind of like good results for Prince Jing but the wrong conclusions kind of thing, because I've seen that happen, and usually it's kind of like, oh, it works in the short term, but in the long term, it backfires onto the person that originally it was helping. Of the third prince. The third prince probably got jealous when he saw the emperor giving Prince Jing special treatment. And when the third prince failed to buy the fish from Prince Jing, he thought Prince Jing was rude and ordered the sixth prince to work with him to frame Prince Jing. The emperor's head hurt. He'd been keeping an eye on Wu Tianming actually, ever since he could remember. Wu Tianming was always competing with Wu Tianzhao, and Wu Tianming was inferior to Wu Tianzhao in terms of ability, but he had his strong points too. There was a period of time when he valued the son of his quite a lot, albeit not as much as he valued Wu Tianzhao. The tragedy that befell Mutin Zhao was ultimately because the emperor had prematurely and unofficially announced that he was to become the crown prince. Now the second prince was no longer in consideration. Learning from his previous mistake, he had no intention of choosing a crown prince yet. He wanted to wait a couple more years and see how the other princes fared. When the seventh and eighth princes were a little older, he would compare all the princes and select the best of them to be the crown prince. But just because the emperor didn't have a crown prince in mind didn't mean that others wouldn't. Mu Tianming used to be quite humble, but without someone above him to compete with, his ambitions were quickly revealed. Mm, I like that you actually seen through all this. It wasn't that the emperor was unaware of Mu Tianming's recent actions in court, teams, and that Consul Tian had also tried to intervene several times when he was dealing with concubine Xie. These were all expressions of their restlessness, but the emperor put up with it. He didn't have many adult sons, so he hadn't made an effort to control the third prince, hoping that even once he gained some power of his own, the third prince and his mother would behave themselves. That had clearly been a foolish assumption. If he'd listened to the nursery rhyme and the impostor monks today, allowing himself to be alienated from Prince Jing, what would he have done to him? He'd already started to suspect Prince Jing. I also like this because it's kind of inadvertently strengthening the Emperor's belief in Prince Jing, or at least making everything that they will try and use to throw suspicion onto Prince Jing in the future less likely to stick. So I'm very happy about that. I do love how the Emperor actually takes the time to think things through and be fair. A lot of times emperors are depicted as hot-headed and cool. Yeah, like, and I mean, I get that to a certain extent. I think if I had to worry about the person I'm married to, or like in their case, the people I'm married to, plus my kids potentially wanting to kill me for my, you know, inheritance or whatever you want to call that, my spots, I would get pretty paranoid as well. I might go around the bend, but I don't think all emperors were like that, and I like that we get to see a variety. Okay. So I see we have 2 pages left before the end of the chapter, so I'm gonna get to the end of the chapter and then I'll see how I feel. I'm thinking we'll keep going for the next hour, but I am gonna take another 10-minute break just real quick after this chapter ends. The emperor was both upset and ashamed. He didn't want to shoulder the responsibility himself for almost falling for the trap, so he could only take out his anger on the two princes who were behind the door. The third prince especially. Since he'd already deposed the second prince, the emperor didn't want to take harsh action against any of his adult sons again so soon, so he simply relieved the third prince of his duties, as he did with the second prince. The third prince was luckier than the second prince had been. Mu Tianzhao had received a title that meant there was no hope left for him, while Mu Tianming remained a prince and wasn't so thoroughly humiliated. But he wasn't much better off. Ordered the guards to hit the third and sixth prince 100 times with a plank, and he personally watched so they couldn't take it easy. That's intense. After that, the sixth prince was fined and grounded, while the third prince was told that his presence was no longer required in court and that he was to go to the imperial study room to study with his younger brothers, his seventh and eighth princes, every day. This punishment was only for bringing in the fake monks. If the investigation into the nursery rhyme concluded that the third prince was also behind it, then it would be up to the third prince to decide his own fate. The third and sixth princes were the first and last of their standing to ever be beaten by the plank. It was a magnificent sight. The emperor ordered the guards to carry out the punishment right in Tianjin Hall. The two princes had their trousers removed in front of everyone and were held down over stools to be beaten. Oh damn, okay. That is a bit more than I was expecting. I thought either like back or maybe their hands because it was Prince James' hands that were injured. Or hand in this case. Prince bore the pain without uttering a single sound, but the third prince cried out every time he was hit. In the side where Leo floated in his crystal bottle, listening in satisfaction. The emperor was publicly punishing the third and sixth princes on behalf of Prince Jing, and Leo was appeased. He was worried about Prince Jing, so he didn't enter the system even when he turned back into a fish. He felt like he'd heard the system chime while he was creating chaos in the main hall earlier, but he didn't know for sure what was going on with his missions. He decided he'd wait until Prince Jing woke up to check. He didn't have to wait long. Prince Jing was soon woken up by the third prince's bone-chilling screams. When Prince Jing opened his eyes, he saw the lower carpet peeking at him from the crystal ball. Did he change back before he could absorb essence? Prince Jing wondered. Well, the days were long, so there was no need to rush. Prince Jing smiled a little. He knew that Xiaoye was right about him, so he wanted to comfort him and pet him a bit. To the prince's great disappointment, though, before he could even lift his uninjured hand to reach out, the crabspread's tail stretched out as he started to meditate. His tyrant master finally woke up. Leah entered the system at once to check his main mission, only to find that the koi side mission he'd been ignoring had been updated. Ooh, okay. I wasn't expecting that. I have to wonder why he decided to wait until Prince Jing was awake. Wanted to see that he's okay and so on. But I would rather quickly go into the system while he's asleep so that I could be there for him when he's awake. But either way. Okay, so I am just quickly gonna stretch my legs, grab some water, and then we're on to the last stretch of it. So I should be back at about 20 past. Hey, I think we're back. I'm fine. I'm quite lucky because generally my camera's battery is totally fine when it comes to like being alive with 2 hours. As long as I put in a new battery before we start the live, I'm fine. But I didn't really think about the fact that if I'm gonna be doing a 3 hour live, then I'm definitely gonna need to switch off it before I sat down again just now. So we are on to new battery. We should be fine. And I think we can survive the next half an hour. I hope my voice holds out. But yeah, if it does start to sound a little bit raspy, I know it's not been doing the best so far. I hope it will still be okay for you guys. Okay, sorry. Pillow acquired and new water acquired as well. So again, for anyone still keeping track, we are on page 93, I think. Let me just make sure. Yes. 93, chapter 46, the joy of petting fish. Okay, interesting. I take it back, our emperor is cool. He is cool, he's just a little bit more thoughtful before he goes cool than some other ones. The koi mission. The original line was, to become a koi, one must have the characteristics of a koi. But it was different now. It said, to become a koi, one must first experience being a koi. How does that work? And we asked the system, why did the prompt change? If you remember correctly, it had happened while he was creating chaos in Changing Palace. The system patiently explained. When the user becomes protective and risks his own life for the tyrant, that is when the user has the characteristics of a void. Okay, so part one of the side quest was fulfilled, but it wasn't treated as like an achievement really. Mia suddenly realized. So the characteristics of a koi means being protective. This whole damn time he thought it was good fortune. Actually, it made some sense. People hoped koi would bring the fortune, but wasn't that just a kind of wishful protection? Because of an unintentional move and a combination of strange circumstances, the koi mission had been accidentally updated. But the update wasn't complete. The mission was still in progress. Mia was a little worried. What does it mean to experience being a koi? User, are you ready? Huh? Before the ear could react, the scene before him suddenly changed. The mental world of the system used to be wild and chaotic, but now it was a vast, starry sky. The system suddenly said, User, please choose a target and experience being a koi. Wait, the system wanted him to choose someone? He wasn't prepared at all. Nia had no idea what the system wanted, but with a closer look, he saw a new path in front of him that led into the dark. Nia was still in his fish form. Have been impossible in reality, so he must still be in the mental world. The system urged him, carry out your mission with no worries. No worries? As if every single time the system said that, it scammed him. Leo was so on guard, he thought about exiting the system first. He was completely unprepared. He'd only come in to check his progress. Finishing was still outside. What if he failed and couldn't turn into a koi? But though he could normally exit the system easily, he couldn't now. The system had started scamming him already by not giving him a way out, trapping him in this mental world. If he wanted to escape, it looked like he would have to do as the system said and experience being a koi. So he caused a lot of trouble by changing his scales. Leo wasn't terribly excited about becoming a koi, But such was the life of a fish. No, Leah, I don't think that's the life of a fish. I think that's the life of Leah specifically, because average fish don't just change their species every so often. But okay. Leah swam along the path in front of him. Eventually, he wasn't sure how much time ahead, and his surroundings gradually became clearer. He realized he was in the imperial palace, because the tiles on the walls were the gold ones that only appeared there. Since he could still swim around but couldn't leave the mental world though, didn't prompt him, meaning he would have to work everything out for himself. He was used to this by now. But what did it mean by pick a target? He hadn't seen anyone yet. As if in response to his confusion, he heard voices a distance away. Leah swam over and found two kids fighting in the grass. Of the two children, one, the older of the two, was taller and skinnier, while the other was shorter and chubbier. A little round boy with bulging cheeks and a plump body. The older one seemed to be about 7 or 8 years old, and the younger one about 2 or 3. It wasn't clear why they were fighting each other. Jumped back in time in this mental landscape, and this was either the Emperor and his one of his brothers, or it's Prince Jing and one of his brothers, and I'm hoping because it would just be cool. Leah, if it's Prince Jing, chooses Prince Jing without it knowing that it's him. The larger child was sly, pinching and twisting the flesh of the plumper boy, even kicking him in the stomach. Any other child would have started crying long ago, but not only did the plump boy not cry, he even clenched his teeth and greeted the other child's face with his fist, giving him a black eye. That kind of sounds like chemistry. Maybe I'm thinking too much. He was close by, and it seemed the children couldn't see him. He tried separating them, but he couldn't touch them, so it was truly an illusion, and he could only watch. Did the system mean for him to pick someone out of these two children? The fight ended quickly once the little plump boy thumped into the larger child's arm. The older child covered his wound and cried out, "Just you wait! I'm telling our royal father." He howled and wailed the entire way as he ran. The plump boy stared at his back coldly, then lowered his head and picked up a broken paper kite beside him, tidying it up himself. Guessed that these two boys must be princes. But these ages didn't match the ages of the seventh and eighth princes he knew of. What's more, the two little radishes were on good terms, and the original novel never mentioned that they fought. So who was the little chubby boy? As the year watched, the servant ran forward in a hurry, hugging the plump boy. "Your Highness, why did you fight with the second prince again? Did you beat him into the ground?" Leah laughed with the way the servant spoke was quite funny. The chubby boy's dark eyes glinted, and he nodded. The servant turned around with the boy to wipe his face, and when Leah clearly saw the servant's face, he was shocked. His face was almost identical to Ramses's, just a little younger. Stunned, was this a mysterious relative of Wang Gong's? Our poor fish is not clocking onto it yet. Sorry, I feel like I'm starting to trip over my words a lot. His interest in these two was piqued. The servant, who looked like Wangshi, led the chubby little prince away, and Liu quietly followed, only to see them enter a building. Liu looked around and thought the place looked familiar, so he lifted his head and glanced at the plaque at the entrance. The word Jingtai Hall were engraved, he was stopped in his tracks. He was aware of only one prince who lived in the entire hall, and the servant looked so similar to Angxi. Having suddenly stumbled upon the truth, Mia almost screamed. No way! No wonder the chubby boy didn't say anything when he was getting hit, and no wonder the servant looked so much like Wang Shi. A child's appearance could change a lot as he grew up, so Mia didn't recognize the chubby boy, but adults didn't change that much. This is so cute! Oh my goodness! Just look at it and tell me it's not cute. It's so cute. Yeah, properly. It's a, and the kite looks a little bit like a fish as well, but that's such a nice detail. Being tangled and the young servants resembled Wang Shi. Weren't they Prince Jing and Wang Shi? He knew the system liked to scam fish. Before, it had always been inconsequential things, but now not only was the system not letting him exit, it also put him into an illusion from more than 10 years ago? Huh. So Prince Jing was a little dumpling when he was a child. I don't know why, but I find that description so endearing. Like a little dumpling, it just sounds so pleasant. Entering an illusion didn't seem like a big deal to me since we'd already transmigrated into a book. But when he realized that he was seeing Pinchlin's childhood, he was a little happy. He swung his tail crazily, racing to follow behind the chubby boy. Baby Pinchling and Wang Shi still couldn't see him, so Li swam boldly in front of them and jumped into the familiar courtyard. She wiped Prince Jamie's round little face clean, then left the chubby boy in the courtyard and told him not to wander around. Going to get something. Prince Jamie was very obedient and really just sat there with a straight face, unmoving. Mia swam behind the round boy and switched his tail across his back a couple of times, but the little Prince Jane didn't react. As expected, he couldn't feel Lia. So how was he to experience being a koi? Well, either way, now that Lia knew the chubby boy was Prince Ding, he definitely chose him. While he was thinking with his fish head tilted, the older prince that Prince Ding had chased away returned. I very much leaned towards Xiaoyu's thought as well of like, oh, if it's Prince Ding, obviously you have to choose Prince Jing because my thought was if you're a koi, you want to be with someone you want to support because you're an auspicious protector, that kind of thing. And kois typically live quite long, so probably they're quite. And, you could maybe infer that if you live that long, you're gonna stay with one person for their life, that kind of a thing. Um, but maybe it's not supposed to be a good thing for him to pick Prince Jing. I'm not sure. Lei remembered that Wang Shi had called him the second prince, so that must be the second prince when he was a child. The second prince ran over, and Prince Jing stared at him fiercely. The second prince said angrily, "Our royal father said I should teach you a lesson. He wouldn't come to see you. We won't care about you." I so hope this kid is lying, because that seems so petty to do to like to have one child discipline another. Princeton was riled and they started to, Princeton was riled and they started to tussle again. To the year, the fight between two children seemed like a fight between helpless baby birds. Even if he wanted to help, he couldn't. The two princes betangled together in the fight again, and when they rolled over next to the pond, Princeling was unprepared. The second prince somehow mustered the strength to shove Princeling into the pond. Swim, and when the second prince saw him struggle in the water, he ran away screaming, "Don't run! Come back and save him!" Leah swam back and forth anxiously, but once she wasn't there and nobody else was nearby either. No, he had to save Princeling, even if it was an illusion. Leah jumped into the pond without hesitation. The moment he hit the water, he felt a long absent wetness. It seemed he had fully entered the illusion. There was no time to think. He swam straight to Princeling's side like an arrow. The jet black fish, with a golden belly and tail, suddenly appeared out of nowhere, surprising chubby little Princeling enough that he forgot to keep struggling. About to sink, but Leah opened his mouth and grabbed the hem of his clothes. He could touch Princeling now, as he'd suspected, but he was just a little cub. No matter how much strength the system gave him, he couldn't lift a 2 or 3-year-old child. He needed to be bigger and stronger. He prayed fervently. At that moment, his body seemed to answer his prayers and started to grow. He was able to transform. When he finally grew as long as the chubby boy's arm, Leah grabbed him by his clothes again, could finally move him a bit, and he tugged and pushed him to the shore. The chubby boy's cheeks were flushed, and he looked excited. His eyes were wide open, and he stared at the fish without blinking. Leah was exhausted, but still concerned for the boy. He couldn't leave the pond and swim in the air like he did before, so he stayed in the water and pushed his back against the little boy's hand. Tubby Princeling gave him a look of confusion. I can't help but wonder if, this is now written into Princeling's past and it's not just an illusion, and that's why he has such an affinity for fish now as an adult. Because I'm kind of a sucker for things like that, where the time loop doesn't make sense, but it's cute and you don't care. He doesn't even know how to pet a fish. How did this kid turn into a man who petted me until my tail went soft? Leo resigned, pushed his back up to move through the little chubby boy's fingers. After Leo demonstrated how to pet him, the little guy reached a finger out and poked the fish's slippery back. Once he was used to how cold it was, the toddler put his whole hand on him and was soon petting the fish properly. Petting fish makes one happy. Oh, this is cute. There's a spot here. There's a spot here, chubby boy. As Leo enjoyed the chubby boy's unskilled petting, he put his head into the boy's palm and bumped it twice. He still didn't know what it meant, but Leo liked it a lot when Prince Jane did that. The chubby boy smiled and lightly patted his head under his guidance. The smile on his plump face showed a glimpse of the handsome man he turned into. Leo flicked his tail audibly to encourage him. He and the chubby boy silently played for a bit. There were numerous voices coming from close by, and since Leo could be seen now, he hurriedly turned around, flicking his tail, and hid amongst the aquatic plants in the pond. The chubby baby Princeling was quickly surrounded by a flock of imperial physicians and a man wearing dragon robes. The young emperor briskly walked over. To his surprise, he saw a pond of rippling water sprinkled with gold. This was because the little cub was hiding among the aquatic plants. of the fish's body and tail, imprinting its dazzling color into the depths of his eyes. The emperor turned around and looked worriedly at the fifth prince that fell into the water. How are you feeling? Are you all right? The chubby boy looked at the emperor and yawned. He couldn't see the fish anymore. He got up shakily, bobbled twice, and fell down again. For kindness! The imperial physicians hurriedly picked him up forehead with his palm and shouted, "The fifth prince has a high fever. It's hot to the touch." Leah hadn't realized that Chubby Boy's flushed face was an indicator of fever, and he nearly lunged back out from the aquatic ponds in worry. Suddenly, though, everything seemed to be separated by a layer of mist, and he felt himself gradually moving away. The last thing Leah heard was the Emperor's angry voice saying, "Cure him right now. If anything happens to Tianjin, there's no need for any of you to keep living." Damn, it's not their fault that your other son is a menace. He was shocked. The chubby boy's name was originally Tianjin, not Tianxi. A person? Was it not his tyrant master? Impossible. He'd read the entire book. The emperor didn't have a son named Tianjin. Guangxi was his personal servant, and he couldn't talk. That was Prince Jing's character setting, but why was Prince Jing's title Jing? I mean, you've been calling him Prince Jing the entire way, so I understand the confusion, but also I feel like there would more be the question of why did it change to Tianxi when the fact that Prince Jing is being called Jing, and now you find out that his full name was originally Tianjing, makes a lot more sense. I had been wondering where the Jing came from Tianxi originally, but I'd kind of just been like, it's maybe just a long 1G situation. Oh, I wanted to drink some water and I dropped my mouth. Hey, when he was younger, among a bunch of princes with the names made up of characters that contained the radical they, Tianchi didn't follow the pattern. If it was Tianjing, then it would fit. The only one who could change Prince Jing's name was the emperor, so that was likely what had happened. But why? We couldn't think of a reason, but it wasn't really important. Prince Jing was called Tianchi or Tianjing, he was still his tyrant master. The system's notification came right at that moment. User, congratulations on completing the Becoming a Koi side mission. You will become a Koi and receive the abilities of a Koi when you collect your reward. Leah's thoughts were still with the chubby baby boy who had fallen ill, and he kept having to remind himself that that was just something that had happened in their illusion, not reality. Prince Jing was fine now, and was just outside. He also wasn't a chubby little child anymore, so he wasn't actually sick, right? But even though Leah knew it wasn't real, he couldn't help asking, "System, the chubby child just now, what happened to him afterward?" Afterward, he was sick. He recovered a few days later. Wow, how useful. Forget it. He knew the system was good at scamming fish, so it was already quite impressive that he'd managed to find out this much. Leah looked at his body. It had gotten larger in the illusion. but he was back to his regular size now. It was just an illusion after all, so the effect didn't stay with him. He was satisfied with that. The Koi mission was now completed, most likely because he had helped the baby Prince Jing in the illusion just now. The system had wanted him to experience what it was like being a koi. He knew that the characteristics of the koi fish was to protect. So experiencing what it was like to be a koi for him was for him to experience the feeling of protecting himself, just like the way he chose the chubby boy and helped him, and could turn into a koi. Leo wasn't very excited though. Now the long-awaited award was right in front of him. If he turned into a koi, would his scales change color? Yes, the system informed him. Her scales will be adjusted again. Then I'll leave it for later. He'd been forced to suddenly complete the koi mission. Last time his scales changed, he'd caused a lot of trouble. Drewstring had only just finished dealing with it. If he changed scales again, wouldn't it be suspicious? Even if he were a real koi, the change wouldn't happen so often. I'll get to it later. The system seemed confused. Leah tried to leave the system again and succeeded this time. With a lingering fear, he returned to reality, where he found Prince Jing wrapping him in the golden blankets. Leah wagged his tail, touched. Even though the illusion wasn't real, it was nice to meet you, chubby child. Oh goodness, that was quite funny. Uh, Everything seems fine here, I hope. On to chapter 47, Fish Mouth Hurts. Interesting. Prince Jing realized that the carp spirit was very friendly towards him after his meditation. By meditating as soon as he woke up. Prince Jing had read some new introductory books on cultivating, so he knew that when one meditated, one could gain insight on some things. So what was it the little carp had come to understand? Leo was quite proud of himself. I found out Prince Jing used to be chubby. How surprising. How unexpected. He he he. He knew that what happened was in the illusion wasn't real. But the sight of that chubby little child was something he could look back on in amusement for a long time. Wrapped in the golden blanket that his tyrant master found it strange. The emperor felt guilty that Prince Jing had been injured. He wanted him to stay in the palace until his injury healed. But Prince Jing only agreed to stay for 3 more days. The emperor was silent for a while, thinking about the way bad things seemed to happen to Prince Jing whenever he entered the palace, and ultimately relented. After all this, the emperor remained somewhat uneasy. He wasn't suspicious of Prince Jing, but he wondered if there was something wrong with his fish that even the Imperial Astrological Bureau couldn't see. Now I'm extra glad that Leah didn't transform, because then the emperor would have freaked. He sat silently in Tianjin Palace for 2 hours before ordering head unit then Master Liao Tong from Hupo Temple. That was too many new words in one go. The particular master was different from the ordinary monks. That was why the emperor sent for him. In his younger years, he traveled the world, broadened his horizons, and was an extraordinary conversationalist. Now he presided over the imperial family's Hupo Temple. If the emperor was said to trust direct the son of the Imperial Astrological Bureau very much, then Liao Hong was the equivalent of 3 director sons. The only thing was that he had already lived through 3 different dynasties and was very much elderly, so he didn't get involved in ordinary affairs. The emperor was the only one who could summon him to anyone else. Tangentially, if the third and sixth princes had managed to win over Liao, they wouldn't have had to use any fake monks, and things wouldn't have gone so poorly for them. Head Eunuch Law rushed to Bogor Temple with an imperial edict, and Prince Jing, who was staying in Jingtai Hall over his few days at the palace, learned of its learned of it soon after. When Wang Shi gave him the secret report, Prince Jing glanced at his constant companion, who had been moved into the blue-white porcelain fish tank, then slightly nodded. Leo was a fish, so technically it didn't matter where he lived. But at Prince Jing's manor, there was the huge pond that Prince Jing had built for him, allowing him to swim around freely. He liked the manor, but staying in Jingtai Hall for a couple more days wasn't a big deal. When Mengshi put him in the porcelain fish tank, Liu had been initially surprised. He'd assumed the fish tank in Jingtai Hall would be too small for him now, but Prince Jing had really updated and altered all the fish tanks he barely used too. Extremely comfortable. There was no one better at taking care of fish than his Tyrant master, he thought proudly. The first day they arrived at Jingtai Hall, the third and sixth princesses' mothers sent people to visit. Since the 2 princes were being punished for offending Prince Jing, the third prince's mother, Consort Tian, and the sixth prince's mother, Consort Zhang, wanted to ask Prince Jing for mercy. They had already asked the emperor, but Consort Tian had only recently gained a little favor from the third prince's brief advancement, and Consort Zhang, like the sixth prince, had never made much of a name for herself. Their words were useless in front of the emperor, and when he rejected their pleas, they were afraid to keep asking, lest he become angry and hurt the 2 princes further. Consort Tian mulled over it and decided to take Consort Zhang with her to beg Prince Jing for forgiveness. Consort Zhang had no ideas herself. She had cried when her son was beaten, so she went along with Consort Tian. However, since they were concubines, it was not appropriate for them to visit. Consort Tian wanted the emperor to be aware of their planned visit, so she sent several palace servants in advance with gifts for Prince Jing. But those servants waited outside Jingtai Hall for several hours, and Prince Jing gave no indication that he would meet them. When the emperor heard the news, he was extremely dissatisfied to learn that Consort Tian and Consort Zhang were disturbing Prince Jing's recovery, so he had been added to the house arrest list, killing 2 birds with 1 stone by setting an example for the rest of the harem too. Damn, and I'm pretty sure it was just Prince Jing being his normal taciturn self, and not Prince Jing having this plan to get them to be punished. So that's kind of like accidentally ingenious. Everyone started to avoid Jingtai Hall, and the surroundings quieted down considerably. In the morning and evening, the imperial physician would come to Jingtai Hall to change Prince Jing's dressing and listen to his pulse. The first night, Prince Jing had a fever. When Liu woke up, he checked on Prince Jing out of habit. There was no one else around. Since he was in the porcelain fish tank again, it was difficult to see outside, so he swam to the edge of the tank, carefully placed his fins in it, and pushed himself up. He saw Prince Jing lying down limply, as if he hadn't moved all night. Strained at first, and when he noticed Prince Jing's abnormally flushed face and shortened breaths, he knew that Prince Jing was running a fever. He immediately transformed into a human and rushed over to feel Prince Jing's forehead. It was very hot. The fever seemed to be quite high. When the imperial physician was treating Prince Jamie, he had mentioned that it was likely Prince Jamie would get a fever, so cold water and handkerchiefs had been stocked in the room. Leah quickly dipped a handkerchief in the water and placed it on Prince Jamie's forehead, then rushed out to find Wang Shi. Wang Shi was standing guard outside, so he came right away when Leah called for him. On seeing the situation, he immediately went to find the imperial physician, asking Leah to watch over Prince Jane. Obviously, he would do his best, but he could only transform for 2 hours, so hopefully Wang Wong would be back by then. In any case, he would just take care of Prince Jane for now. Leah sat down next to Prince Jane, switching the handkerchief out when it warmed up too much, but Prince Jane was still burning up. He couldn't just continue like this. Leah thought back to the physical cooling methods he knew of from the modern world and decided to try one of them out. He undid Prince Jane's undershirts and wiped down several of his joints with warm water. It was quite effective, and the heat on Prince Jane's body soon receded. But Leah himself was exhausted. The illusionary events of the Koi mission may not have been real, but the energy he'd used to save the chubby little boy was. After he exited the illusion and completed the mission, he still had to get up in the middle of the night to take care of feverish Prince Jane. Leah didn't want to complain. Deep down, he'd felt guilty that he couldn't help the chubby little boy with his fever, so he could make up for it now. She still hadn't arrived, but Leah had succeeded in lowering Prince Jane's fever. A wet handkerchief on his forehead, afraid the fever would come back. He wanted to stay awake until he turned back into a fish, so he could jump into the fish tank to sleep, but it was too difficult. Eyelids were drooping, and before the transformation time was over, his body slumped slowly over. Prince Jane was sleeping pretty deeply, and when he finally woke up, felt weak, and his chest felt worryingly tight. The human-shaped fish was lying on his chest, fast asleep. Jane thought he must be dreaming, and he was both confused and happy. He couldn't help himself. He softly touched Charlier's face. He was real. He didn't know what had happened, but since his fish was so defenseless, he found himself wanting to tap him. Prince Jane removed his injured hand without thinking, and the wound on his palm throbbed in pain. Maybe the wound had reopened, but it didn't seem to matter. He carelessly raised an eyebrow and used the other hand to pull the sleeping corpse spirit into his arms. Stop, that's too cute. Just want to see. Okay, we still have a decent amount of time to go. Unfortunately, I think we're going to have to stop it here, and then we will continue from page 110 next Tuesday. To recap, because I did mention it in the previous live, but I didn't mention at the start of this one, is we are now moving these lives to being only on Wednesdays, and ideally I would like to keep up these 3-hour sessions to make up for the fact that I'm doing only one session a week instead of the 2 hours each ones that I did last year. My voice is a little bit hoarse, but I feel like I could get used to this, so I hope you guys are okay with this new setup. Maybe it'll be worth it to all start an hour earlier and finish at the same time that I would have otherwise, instead of ending an hour later and starting at the same time that I would have usually. So I'm not yet sure about that. And then also I might put up a poll regarding the rewatching of Justice in the Dark. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you thought if you watched this on replay, and otherwise I'll see you next time. So Jim.